Okay. All right. Well, I think we are going to go ahead and get started. It looks like we've got everybody that we need. Thank y'all for being here. I realize that giving up some of your professional time during the workday is not a small thing. And I really appreciate you giving me some of your time to do this important orientation and just more broadly for being involved in our program and sharing your experiences with our students. My name is Andrew Nichols. I believe most all of us have communicated either on the phone, via email. It's nice to see you see your face and meet you virtually. If you've not signed in, please do so um, using the link in the chat and then open the resource folder. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. Let's talk a little bit about the goals of our program. Broadly speaking, our goals are exploration, application, and exposure. The emphasis of the experience is on applying skills developed through classroom instruction, exploring career opportunities, and on learning new career competencies. So, as a mentor, you provide for opportunities for students to do these things. This may include shadowing, independent skill building, or research, or the student may contribute to a project you are working on. Every internship is different depending on the opportunities available. So don't worry about checking off a list of required experiences. Provide the opportunities that you can within the bounds of your daily work. So before internships begin officially, before students can start coming and see you in person, there are some steps that must be completed. Some of them are by the student and some of them are by you. So most of you have already submitted the signed partnership agreement. If you have not done so, please do so as soon as possible. There's a copy of that in the resource folder. Most of you has also completed the Google contact form. I'm going to put that link in the chat as well. You don't have to do that right now, but open that up on your computer and you can complete that after we are done today if you have not already done so. And then um, after this orientation, you can start meeting with your intern virtually to develop the learning contract. I'll talk more about the learning contract later in our training. For our new partners, we need to schedule a site visit. If you are if you are an established partner, we don't need to do this. So I've dropped a link in the chat to a Calendly site so you can sign up for a site visit with me. This is something that has to be completed before the student can come and visit you at your work site. The final step is for the teacher to approve the learning contract. We've had some problems in the past with students starting their internships without a clear direction or with a poor plan. So I want to make sure that the teacher has the opportunity to review the plan and approve it. And then once those things have been done, the student can start visiting your offices. If yours is a fully virtual internship, the site visit, of course, is not required, and you can get started as soon as the learning contract has been approved. So the internships are going to run from mid-January. Some of our students are starting now through the end of March, and the students are going to engage in between 45 and 60 hours of internship. It works out to about 5 weeks on average, or 5 hours per week on average. Although this is an average, it may be more some weeks and less on others. Students are typically going to come and see you 2 days a week, and they leave school early on those days. You will work out the specifics of that schedule with your intern when you meet virtually. You and the student will develop the learning contract with goals and an action plan. That contract guides the internship experience. Students are responsible for keeping track of their time and requesting evaluations. They'll ask you to sign off on these periodically, but it's not your responsibility to keep up with them. Our internships accumulate with a capstone project. Again, you're not directly responsible for the project, but it's the intern's responsibility. They should be coming to you for support and and asking questions. A big component of this is just simply working through the learning contract and the action plan. So this generally happens more naturally. I want to briefly review the 9 agreements that everyone has agreed to in the partnership agreement. So this is something that all stakeholders, parents and myself and the teacher and the student and you and your organization have agreed to. The first one is that the internship is for the benefit of the student intern, and that the student intern does not displace regular employees but works under the mentor's close observation. The partner organization does not derive any advantage from the activities of the student intern, and on occasion, its operations may in fact be impeded. The student's not guaranteed a job after the internship period. You may choose to extend their internship, but that is not a requirement, and the students do not expect this. These are unpaid internships. Students are not entitled to receive wages while they are in our program. We ask that your organization provide the student with time, space, and opportunity to engage in the internship. We ask you to provide a safe working environment for the student and any training that is needed to maintain safety. The internship may be terminated by the parent, teacher, the mentor, or the partner organization, or the program director, that's me, provided any reasonable justification and notice. And finally, all parties agree to waive liability for injuries sustained both in transit from school and to the internship, provided that all requirements of relevant state and federal laws are met. Broadly speaking, you have two big sets of responsibilities as the adult mentor. And the first one is to engage with the student in the internship, and the second one is to ensure the student's safety. We're going to dig a little bit more deeply into each of these in the next few minutes. So, engaging with the internship means that you're going to provide mentorship and internship experiences that provide the student intern with skills and attitudes necessary for lifelong learning, competitive employment, and continuous improvement. You're going to share your professional experience and lessons that you've learned along the way. You are going to develop the learning contract with the student, with the internship's input, and it may be revised as needed as you move through. That is going to be a collaboration. And then I said before, you're periodically going to sign off on the intern's timesheet. You're going to provide the training that the student needs to meet the pre-approved learning contract. You must communicate any concerns regarding the intern with the program coordinator. Again, that's me. You have to, and then verify and sign reports as needed. So I've mentioned this learning contract quite a few times here. It is developed collaboratively between you and the student. It guides all the work that the student and you are going to do together. It includes 2 SMART goals that the student seeks to accomplish by the end of the internship. And it outlines a simple action plan for achieving each of the goals. So, and then the last part of the contract is for you to actually schedule the days and times that the student's going to visit your site. Ultimately, the learning contract does guide the capstone project that the student is completing. And again, you're not directly responsible for the project, but you should check in with the intern regularly to monitor their progress towards achieving their goals. Let's take a closer look at the internship. Actually, let me put this on a different screen so I can see it a bit better. Pardon me. Let me get the version I want. Here we go. Okay, so this is what the learning contract looks like. You have a copy of this in your resource folder. Students also have a copy of the form and have been trained and familiarized with it. As we go through the document, when you see text that is typed in just a regular Arial font, those are the instructions that are included with the document. When you see a font that looks like script or handwriting, that's the portion that the student would complete on their own. So we're going to look at a sample here of what might be a typical learning contract. Notice that the document on this first page is divided into two columns, where each column represents a separate goal. Up at the top, we ask the student to just simply draft two goals. These don't have to be good goals, well-structured goals, specific goals. The whole point of this activity on this first page is for them to make it a good goal, make it a SMART goal. So if you're not familiar with the acronym of SMART goals, SMART stands for specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. So then, as the student works down the activity with your collaboration and with your support, they're going to answer some questions that helps them determine what exactly does it mean for their goal to have each of these characteristics. So we're going to focus on goal 2 as we work through this document. So the student's draft goal for goal 2 was to create a social media post. Well, that's very vague and doesn't have really any of the requirements of a SMART goal, but that's the goal. We're going to try to develop that as we go down. Okay, so for specific, the guiding questions here are what do we want to accomplish, or what do you want to accomplish, and who needs to be included, and why these goals. So the student wrote that I want to promote something on social media. I need my mentor's help to figure out what or where I can promote. Social media is really important right now, so it's important that I develop these skills. So that helps specify the goal. For measurable, how can you measure progress and know if you've met your goals? The student wrote, I want my post to reach a wide audience. Maybe I can track views, reactions, or shares. Achievable, the guiding questions here are, do you have the skills required to achieve the goals? And if not, can you obtain them? Is the amount of effort required on par with the goal that you will achieve? So the student wrote, I used Instagram and TikTok daily, but only to share fun stuff with my friends. I don't know what it looks like to use them professionally. My mentor can help me identify the best tools and give me feedback on my post. This may be challenging, but I think it's doable. Relevance, why is the student setting the goal now, and how does it align to the broader objectives to the internship? I shared those broader goals with you earlier, and the students are aware of those as well. The student has written here, this is a very important skill for marketing. One of our internship's objective is to develop professional skills. And then finally, time bound. What's the deadline, and is it realistic? The student wrote that this will take longer. I want to create the post, but have plenty of time to track its impact. Maybe draft it in early February and post it by the end of the month so I can track the impact in March. So based upon their answers to these questions, they've thought through these different aspects of a SMART goal. And then with your help, they are going to revise their initial goal to get to actually make it meet these requirements. So the finalized goal that the student and the mentor developed says that by March 30th, I will create, edit, post, and track the impact of a social media post to promote a product or event. I'm going to pause here for a moment. We typically have some questions about this first page of the learning contract. And so I just wanted to see if anybody wanted to speak up and share their question and see if any clarification is needed. Looks like we got a hand raised. Rod, what's your question? I'm sorry, Rod, you're muted.
Sorry about that. At this point, have the students already completed this SMART goal set? Or is that going to happen after that initial connection with them?
This tool has been presented to them, and some training and similar training has been provided to them that I've provided to you now. Their instructions are to brainstorm and start developing kind of a draft of this, with the expectation that when you meet with the student virtually, you will collaborate to, fill in the gaps, help specify some of the things, because they're simply not going to have the frame of reference to really do a good job of answering some of these questions until you've talked about it.
Got it.
Okay. Anybody else? So let me move on to the second page of the learning contract. On the second page, we start to develop the action plan. We ask them some guiding questions here. We ask them, what are the resources that you need? How are you going to get them? What are some potential stumbling blocks and how are you going to avoid them? And then what is the specific evidence that you're going to collect along the way to show that you have accomplished your goals? For the student, this is very important for the capstone project because they have to speak about not just the final product, but the evidence of the execution of the action plan along the way. So we're going to continue to focus on goal 2 here. For goal 2, the student wrote that I need access and training for business access to a social media platform, and I need my mentor's help to revise my post to make it more effective. For stumbling blocks, for goal 2, I won't be successful if I don't know what a good social media campaign looks like. I don't know how to track the impact of my post. I need to research effective social media campaigns and get feedback from my mentor. I'll try to figure out the impact tracking independently, but I need my mentor's help. For evidence for goal 2, I will save my drafts of my posts to show how they develop, and I will take screenshots of the impact data as it changes over time. The next portion is to actually develop a step-by-step action plan. Let me scroll down here to goal 2. And I'm not going to go through this in as much detail, but I just want to point out a few things here, that it is broken down into discrete steps. The student may need some help specifying these details. They may not understand how a particular goal is going to break down in terms of execution. They probably will have a general idea, but they may not know the specifics. So you're going to have to help them develop those steps and then also come up with reasonable due dates for each of those steps. Some of these things will happen concurrently. As you know, projects don't happen linearly. And so the dates that that are included here are simply end dates, not a time in which, things don't have to wait until that period of time. This action plan has 8 steps. I can't imagine that any action plan within the scope of this time is going to be much longer than that. Most of them will probably be a little bit shorter. If they get too detailed, then you're probably getting down into the weeds with things that are going to change anyway. If they're too short, then they're probably too vague and won't do a good job of guiding the student's experience. The last portion of the contract is for the student and the mentor to actually establish the schedule for the internship. Students have been given very, very specific instructions and expectations that they are meant to make the schedule and stick to it. That if they can't be there, they should notify you in advance so that you can adjust your schedule accordingly. And so as closely as possible, we're going to come up with a fixed schedule from week to week when the student's going to be arriving and departing and which days of the week. We know there's going to be some exceptions and we want the student to anticipate those. Are there any specific events? Are there any specific holidays? Are their parents going to go make them do something? That sort of thing. Sometimes the internship may happen in the evenings and the weekends, but that depends on the student's availability and the parents' consent. And then finally, the learning contract, basically everybody has to agree to it. It is a contract. The teacher has to approve the contract before the student can start coming to your internship site. And then and then I will have final approval, but I won't see the contract. The teacher will be the final approval before the student starts. I'll just review it after the fact. Okay, let me stop one more time and see if there are any questions about these last few parts of the learning contract. Right, doesn't sound like there are any questions. So let's switch back around and go take a look at our back to our presentation. Okay. The capstone event is in April. It is actually on Thursday, April 18th, tentatively, and it will be in the afternoon, towards the end of the workday. So if you want to put a save the date on your calendar for the afternoon of April the 18th, I'd encourage you to do so. Mentors, parents, partners, everybody's encouraged to attend. It's a celebration of what the students have accomplished and what they have learned. It's just going to give them an opportunity to share out and practice their communication skills, but also to give everybody else to show some appreciation for the work that they've done and see what they've been able to accomplish. So please plan a Thursday, April 18th to join us in the afternoon for the capstone event. So the second broad responsibility of the mentor is to ensure the intern's safety. There are some specific components of this. First is to complete child protection training, which is going to be a part of what we're doing today. You're going to need to provide safety instruction for all tasks and duties that may present a possible safety hazard to the student learner. You must directly supervise the intern or assign a supervisor to do so. You must notify me in advance if plans are made to terminate or alter the position of the intern. You must comply with all applicable state and federal employment regulations, provide the student intern with equal opportunity, and not discriminate based on race, color, or national origin, including English proficiency, sex, or other protected classification. And you must adhere to the provisions of all state and federal child labor laws and existing labor management agreements. Specifically, I'll point out the Fair Labor Standards Act. You may remember several years ago, there was some motion towards making sure that interns were paid for the time and the work that they did. In this specific situation, that law defines your intern as an unpaid intern. They are doing this specifically in an educational setting. They are working a very small number of hours and they are not contributing to your work product. And so they are allowed to be unpaid interns under that law. So this is the part of the presentation that the child protection that may be a little uncomfortable. We don't like to think about some of these things, and sometimes they make us a little bit nervous. But I want to point out before we start that everything we're going to talk about here is almost perfectly aligned with the HR training that you've already received in your profession. So generally speaking, if you are interacting with the student in a professional way, none of these things are going to happen. So generally speaking, all forms of abuse are prohibited. These things apply to a child, and a child is any person under the age of 18. However, we do have some 18-year-olds in the program, and because you have a position of authority over the child, these guidelines still apply. Child abuse may include emotional abuse, physical abuse, or sexual abuse. Emotional abuse is behavior toward a child that is demeaning or disrespectful. Examples include verbal threats, social isolation, intimidation, unreasonable demands, or the intentional damaging of the child's self-esteem. Physical abuse is defined as the non-accidental use of physical force against a child in such a way that the child either sustains bodily injury or is at risk of bodily injury, however slight. Sexual abuse is defined as any form of sexualized interaction involving a child and a more powerful individual. Powerful here may be in terms of age, size, or knowledge. Uh, Child sexual abuse may occur through inappropriate physical contact, as well as through behaviors that do not involve actual physical contact. For example, inviting a child to view pornography. By engaging in the internship as a mentor, you become a mandatory reporter. Um, what this means is that just like any educator, if you have any suspicion of abuse, you must report that to me as the representative of the school system and to the Georgia Department of Family and Child Services. Something that's important to note here is that once you've made your reporting, that is the end of your responsibility. You should not investigate. Notify me, notify child services, and that is the end of your action. Further action will be taken by me in the school system and DFCS as appropriate. DFCS has a 24-hour hotline. The number is here on the screen. You have a copy of this presentation in your resource folder so you can reference these numbers at a later time. If you would like to learn more about the DFCS policy, you can visit their website. So let's talk about the code of conduct and what youth protection violations look like. We've talked about mandatory reporting. Code of conduct violations may include, but are not limited to, endangering the safety or security or integrity of the student, deliberately causing shame, humiliation, or demeaning the child, and then threatening or intimidating behavior. Some specific actions that are prohibited. Outside communication is prohibited. What this means is that phone calls, emails, text, social media outside of the context of the internship, outside of educational matters or career concerns are prohibited. So you are very much allowed and encouraged to communicate with your students, however appropriate, phone calls, emails, text. However, it must stay within the bounds of the internship and educational matters or career concerns. You should not be discussing personal matters. Also, activities not related to the internship are prohibited. So again, any activity outside the context of the internship or educational matters or career concerns are prohibited. So you will talk to and engage in activities with the intern about these things, but not outside of the context of the internship. The exception here is if the child is accompanied by a parent or an educator. Secrecy is prohibited. Do not encourage the child to keep any activity a secret. Do not deliberately conceal activities from parents, guardians, or other adults working with the program. These students are 17 and 18-year-olds. Because of their age and their experience, they have a very high level of responsibility for their own safety and security. And for keeping their parents informed. If there are deviations from the schedule or there's an evening event or something like that, and you ask the student, does your parent know? Are they okay with you doing this? And the student says yes, you may take their word for it. They have a high level of responsibility for keeping their parents informed. Any and all sexual conduct is prohibited. So don't make sexually explicit remarks, do not make inappropriate physical exposure or contact, and do not use offensive language or gestures. The best way to protect yourself from accusations of any of these things is to follow the rule of three. That says that essentially that you should never be alone with the student. You should never be alone with the child. There always should be a third person who can either see, hear, or walk by and know what's going on and be able to attest to your actions and to the student's actions and what's being said. So essentially, just don't close a door with you and the student. Just follow that rule of 3, and that is going to take care of almost all possibilities. If you or the student feel uncomfortable for any reason, remove the student or remove yourself from the situation and call me immediately. I want to reiterate your responsibility as a mandatory reporter and remind you of the 24-hour hotline and that you can get more information on the DFCS website. You also need to know how to get in contact with your intern. You need to know how to get in contact with me. My phone number is there on the screen. You'll have an opportunity on the next slide to write that down as well. And then I've included the DFCS number one more time. And then, of course, if it's an emergency, please call 911. Don't call me first. Follow, reasonable guidelines for behavior and call 911 in the case of an emergency. So here's what I'd like you to do right now. If you would take out your phone and send me a text message with your name and the name of your organization. That way I have a record of it in my phone. I'll save your contact. You can save mine. If I need to get in touch with you or you need to get in touch with me, we can do so. And so if you could just take out your phone and send me a message with your name and the name of your organization, I would appreciate that. We've got 14 people in the training session this morning. So I'm just going to be looking for 14 text messages. I'm going to pause and give you a moment to do that. All right, those text messages have started coming in. Thank you, Janelle. Thank you, Kaya. Thank you, Stacy, Evan, Craig, Rod, Chatan, Omar. Thank you all, folks. Ed. So please continue sending those text messages to me, and so that we can save each other's contact information and be able to get in touch when appropriate.
You saw that note that just came through. You had your head down.
I'm sorry?
Somebody doesn't have the phone with them. I think you had your head down as you were reading.
Oh, I'm sorry. Here, let's see. Let me pull the chat up. Okay. It's fine if you don't have your phone, just make a note and do this later. And as long as we kind of I'll go back and double check I've got everybody's contact information on my phone. It's just a good idea, creating trading contacts, to go ahead and send that text message and make sure everybody's got it. Thank you, Rod. Okay, so questions. Of course, if you have questions now, please ask them. If you think of questions later, please get in touch with me by email or by giving me a call. I'll take a couple of minutes here to answer questions. If you have a question that is very specific to your internship or that you don't want to ask in front of the larger group, feel free to hang back after we dismiss and you can ask some additional questions. Okay, so questions. What has come to mind? Chatan, I believe we've got a question from you.
Yeah, I had a quick question. So our center has a collaborative space, and so we typically have a lot of students here. Both graduate and undergraduate students.
Yes.
I'm expecting that the interns would be placed, in our offices here, which would then, there'd be some level of interaction, I'm assuming, between, our interns and the other students in the department. Do I need to be worried about having some kind of control on that interaction, or?
In general, the answer to that question is no. As long as there is supervision by an adult in some way that you have assigned to that student, it should be appropriate. You know what the guidelines are. You should make sure everybody is following those. If there is someone who will be working with the student regularly, I'd like them to fill out the contact form and to attend a mentor orientation so that we know that everybody who's involved with the student on the day-to-day basis knows what the expectations are.
Yeah, so they will be working with me, but then of course there are other students that they may be interacting with. So
incidental contact, infrequent contact, that's fine. They don't have to meet those requirements.
Perfect. Yeah. And I think it's good for the students to actually interact with some of the graduate students here.
Yes. Then that's very typical.
Perfect. Thank you.
Other questions? Okay. Just a couple of final thoughts. Um, you have the full internship manual in the resource folder that describes your responsibilities, but also the responsibilities of the student and the parent and the teacher and myself. And so I would encourage you to open up that document and at least skim through it and kind of get an idea of what each person's role is in this process. Please continue to read and respond to email, both mine and the students. You should be meeting with your intern very, very soon if you have not done so already to start working on that learning contract. Complete that learning contract with the student, and then we'll get it approved by the teacher so they can get started. And above all else, please be safe, both in your day-to-day interactions with the student and in all things around the internship. All right, so that's the end of my presentation. If you want to hang back and ask any additional questions, please feel free to do so. I'll stay on the call for a few additional minutes to answer those questions. There were a couple of people that came in late. If you came in late, if you could just hang back for a few minutes, and we can talk about how we can make up some of the material that you missed. All right. Thank you all for coming. I'm excited for students to get started. Y'all have a great rest of your day. Bye.
Andrew, I had a very